Hi there, I'm Coolie Calihan. I'm a principal artist at Polyarc, and I've been working on the Moss 2 project.
We got to see like a whole lot of fresh new stuff for the game today, which was very exciting. What has it been like, especially in the years since the first game came out, to be pursuing this sort of expansion of that story and that universe again?
It's been a lot of fun. So I joined the team after the first game shipped, and so I got to witness the sort of the rise of Polyarc to, their shipping of Moss, and I immediately was captivated by the game. The world, the bond that the player has with Quill, just like the interactive puzzle solving. Um, I felt like they had a good formula. I felt like it was, it tackled a lot of the problems that VR had of, comfort and nausea and, directing the player's focus toward important events. And so for me to come on and join Moss 2, I was really helping them expand upon the original formula. And so I come from an environmental background. I've been working on environments for my whole career, and so it was a fun challenge to come onto the project where they're making bigger environments. They're making more complex environments. There were new environment systems that players are going to be using to interact with the world in new and bigger ways. And so it's been a ton of fun.
Speaking of environments, we got to see some new areas, some new like between like the forest and the building and all that stuff today. And like, can you speak to, with a specialty in that field, can you speak to like what has it been like to expand the environments that were available in the first game to like this new adventure in the second?
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of, there's definitely an adjustment period that I learned more about VR games, and I learned more about just the unique challenges that building environments for VR games can present, especially when you're focusing, in one small diorama room where there's not, a whole lot of real estate. I'm used to working in an area in games that have, you know, you could go anywhere and these massive environments. And so really learning that the square footage and floor space of each room is very precious, and everything needs to be, positioned just right, was a big challenge for me. And just getting comfortable building things in VR was an adjustment. I changed to using the Unreal Engine, where before I was using proprietary tech at my last studio, and that's been a lot of fun as well. I found Unreal Engine to be a lot of fun, just of how fast you can make changes and get into the game. And so just a lot of like putting the headset on, tweaking a few things, moving the camera, moving some devices, trying to really get things to settle, and then putting the headset back on and doing that a lot of times in a row was a new development challenge for me. And then just on top of that, just bringing my environment creation enthusiasm to the team and helping the team, with their new challenges was a lot of fun. I love building, all of the different art assets that make up an environment, the modular bits that we can reuse, and then also the big custom assets that need more time and attention and might be dynamic. That was a lot of fun for me from my environmental background, because I actually got a chance to do more design work, and I got a chance to craft more of the gameplay experience, and it's a lot of fun.
One of the cooler things that we got to see today when it came to the demo was you get your hands on a hammer eventually, and it allows you to interact with the environment in a different way. And I kind of am curious to know, like, what, in a sort of chicken versus the egg type thing, what came first? Did you all design these obstacles, and then come up with, we needed a way to to mess with these obstacles, or did it come to, we want to give this character more ways and more tools to interact with the environment?
I think it was the latter first. I think we knew that we wanted to create more tools, and with that realization of, hey, we have these new tools, we realized that we can have new ways to impede the player, new mechanics that prevent the player from accessing certain areas. And then also we have the ability to sort of like gate access to areas. So you might come to a room and you can see like these crates are blocking my path. I can't get to the spot, but I think there's something over there that I want to come back to. And then once you receive the hammer, tutorializing that, this is how you use it, or at least it can be used on this particular material. We try to represent that material elsewhere to, whether it's with like similar reactions to when you hit it, right? Having like audio cues that tell you, hey, like this is what's happening. You're hitting up against that armor. What else? Like, what have you used before to help you deal with this threat or deal with this particular object? Like, because we knew we wanted more exploration of the rooms and we wanted to sort of have players return to certain spaces and access things they didn't have before, it kind of was a nice dovetail of like, okay, now we have this new tool. We can marry it with this new obstructive crate object and use those interesting ways to accomplish our goals of a more interesting and sort of encouraging players to come back to that play space.
And you mentioned Unreal Engine as kind of an exciting tool behind this latest sequel to the game. Can you speak a little bit to the state of VR technology and the tools y'all are using as a whole? Like, has it provided a lot of new opportunities for things that were just not possible when the first game came out?
Well, yes and no. There are a lot of new awesome game building features in Unreal Engine that we certainly take advantage of. Like, for instance, we completely overhauled how we deal with devices that have multiple states, and we just were able to implement a piece of content that made it easier for designers to author and change that content. The flip side of that is, as the engine gets more of these nice features, more of these fancy rendering things, it's tempting to want to include them, but VR is, as we know, just so expensive to run. You're rendering two separate screens all at once, and it can be easy to overdo it and find yourself having to optimize for perf later on. So we want to make sure the games perform it. We want to make sure that it's very snappy. That's another thing that we have to be careful of in VR is performance can, you drop frames and now the headset starts stuttering and you start to feel a little bit woozy and weird. And so we try to make sure that the game is as optimized as possible to make sure that we don't run into that problem. And we're still using like static lighting, for example. So much of the new Unreal 5 tech is the Lumen lighting engine and all of the fancy dynamic lighting things. Then ray tracing and all of that stuff is still, at least for Moss, is we're ways away from utilizing that tech just because of how expensive it is. But that's just another reason to get excited for the future. Just how cool is it going to be to be in a HD headset even more than we have now with foveated rendering, like focusing the pixels on where you're looking. Like that'll be fun when we can kind of turn on all of the awesome features. But of course, I imagine by then we'll have even more new awesome toys to play with. So we're still a little bit behind. I think VR is still a little bit behind the curve just because of how expensive it is to render in the headset.
What does the team at Polyarc think of the prospect of the PSVR 2 as far as what has been revealed at this point?
Super exciting. Like we love seeing the new features that they're exploring. Obviously the DualSense 2, I guess. I'm not sure exactly the name, but I can't remember. The PS5 controller, what an awesome piece of hardware. Like the haptic feedback in that thing is sweet. And so pairing that with your controllers and your headset is just going to give us a granularity of feedback that wasn't possible before. And player feedback in VR is one of the most difficult things we found to get right. Like getting players to look at certain things, telling players like you're actually hurting yourself when you do this, how do we communicate these things? Like we built an inventory for Moss Book 2 that like just that system in and of itself took a lot of tuning, took a lot of attention to get it to feel right. But we've got it into a spot now where it feels great to use. You open it up and swap a weapon in the middle of combat, and when you do that successfully, you feel powerful and it's fun. And so, yeah, building all of these new pieces of tech and implementing them into the game is it's been fun. It's been kind of expanding the horizons of possibilities for gameplay.
And getting back to Moss as a whole, like, we're coming off of like the first game you went out to stop Sarfog and save your uncle, and like Moss has always been a hugely narrative adventure. The balance for the team and like getting players new to the franchise up to speed, as well as expanding thoughtfully on what you already had.
Well, Moss Book 2 picks up right at the point at which we've left off from Moss 1. And I think maybe the most important pillar of Moss is your relationship with Quill. And so all of the cinematics and all of the story moments in the game, I think, are there to serve the the development of your relationship with her. And they're there to present the challenges and the obstacles that you'll face in a way that conveys the threat and really communicates how the stakes are raised and the danger is greater. And Quill, this young field mouse from the clearing, she's come such a long way from discovering the first class and going on this quest to save her uncle to now being the hero of her world, of her realm. And watching her reconcile that with these characters who are old friends, new allies, others who have their own opinions about what should happen in the world of Moss with strong voices, maybe conflicting with Quill's voice. How does she deal with those? How can you help her? Those are all things that kind of get played out through the narrative that really make the game feel like a grand new adventure that if you haven't played Moss 1, I think you will be missing out a little bit on that backstory, but we are very careful to introduce players to the world and not take it for granted that they may not know. So we bring you up to speed. We give you all the tutorial that you need to learn the buttons, to learn the controls, and then we build up from there.
Does it feel daunting with a sequel to like build a new threat, a new obstacle that is like expanded upon like what we saw in the first game without like trivializing it? Or is it all about like, yes, this is the big thing, the world, you were in a small pond, now this is the big world beyond it?
Yeah, I think that was the goal. I think that was like the desire was to go big, to go bigger. And from the very outset, the team knew that we wanted to create larger worlds. We wanted to create more intricate worlds. We wanted to create more game, just create more Moss game. And so like new worlds are only as good as what's in them. So filling them with new abilities and new things to interact with and new enemies to interact with and new combat scenarios that you've never seen before. That's been a lot of fun. But then also going back to some of the just bread and butter and meat and potatoes of the Moss experience with his really tight combat, enemies that are responsive, interacting with enemies in interesting different ways. All of that's there too, but with a little bit more, I would say, like refinement, with a little bit more intention. And we've learned a lot since, and I think that will be apparent in some of the combat. It should feel, we try to make it as polished and feel as smooth as possible, but also at the same time, right, like adding more. So yeah, it's that fine line of where can we innovate without compromising on the original, because we know this formula works. So we have to be careful not to like do something that's going to like compromise the comfort of Moss, right? Like that's very important. So we have our constraints that really guide us and point us towards the decisions that we make.
And as much as platforming and combat have been part of Moss, there's also like an environmental puzzle designed to it. We saw some of that in the preview demo today, and I just want to ask, like, have the increases in the developments in technology and technique for the team, have they innovated or have they expanded what the team can do with environmental puzzles and the ways in which you solve them?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have more ways to interact with the environment. We have just like the matrix of possibilities is like just grown so that now we can combine all of these different things together in new ways that players have never seen before. And we also have, a few surprises up our sleeve that, we haven't shown yet that really show just how far we've taken the platforming. And especially, as players progress through the game, they're going to see more and more things that, and it's not just like, we did, move the platforming forward, but, at the same time, we're moving it forward in a way that is, it's tied to the narrative, right? Like we've got a reason for that makes sense with what's happening in the world. And so marrying those things together to, give a purpose to why these things are the way they are is important too. We really want to immerse you and make you feel like there's a rhyme and reason to why the world is the way it is. So being careful to we always talk. I think game developers are always like we're trying to be careful not to go too gamey, right? Like too gamey, which is like weird because it's a game and games are why are we doing it? But anytime we can take a game mechanic and integrate it into a narrative is that's where the magic can really happen. The game's coming out on March 31st, 2022, in just a couple weeks. Of course, you can check out our socials on Twitter at Polyarc Games. I think we've got an Instagram too at Polyarc Games. But I know Twitter and YouTube are going to be the big outlets for us where we're going to be posting, news, updates, media, new content. So we've definitely got some cool content in the works that we're excited to show people before the launch. And of course, send us your feedback if you played the game, if you like it, or if you've got ideas. We'd love to hear them.